What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Matt is going to be joining me in just a moment to talk week 15 of the NFL season. No big Red Sox rant for me today to lead off the podcast. I feel like I still have one in me, but it would probably sound very similar to last week because nothing has happened with the Red Sox in the past week, and that probably deserves a rant of his own. But I am trying to be patient and see how the rest of this offseason goes before I eviscerate this front office and ownership group again on this podcast. So we'll save that for later. There are 3 weeks of NFL football left. So Matt and I are going to start looking forward to the first round of the playoffs and talking about what first round matchups we would like to see the most. But before we get started, feel free to reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening. We always love to hear from you. Let us know what first round matchup you're looking forward to the most. Drop us a line about how your fantasy team is doing. I know it's second round of the playoffs for the majority of us, or at least those of us who are still alive, because I won last week. We'll talk about that a little bit today. Maybe some fantasy advice for your semifinal and then the final next week as well. But hit us up. We always love to hear from you guys. But for now, let's grab Matt and let's talk week 15 of the NFL. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, fresh off of week 15 of the NFL season. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic, except for the fact that we've now played 15 weeks of NFL football. There are only 3 games remaining, and we are at the tail end of fantasy football season with only like 2 weeks of fantasy football left. So get a little sad this time of year because we look forward to football so much. Then all of a sudden it's like, seems like it's almost gone. But the best part of the year is coming up, the
Mhm.
NFL playoffs. Always fun. So to start looking ahead at what first round matchups we're most excited about, we got a little gimmick today where we are going to draft first round playoff matchups. We're both going to pick 5. We'll go back and forth. And basically the first pick is the one you want to see the most. Second pick is second most, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I have a big board of potential first round playoff matchups. And like the first round of the playoffs this year looks like it's going to be pretty solid because every team that's in a playoff spot right now has at least 8 wins already. And the majority of them have 9. I think there's only 2 teams that still have 8. It's like
Yeah.
the fighting Georges and the Chargers right now. So should be a fun playoffs. Can't wait to see Patrick Mahomes win his 3rd straight Super Bowl because it's absolutely inevitable. Do you want to lead us off with your first pick or you want me to go first?
I'll go. So, I'm gonna go with a pretty classic rivalry here. Ravens Steelers. It might not be the prettiest game, but by God, will it be entertaining football? There's probably gonna be a few scuffles because just the rivalry is just intense enough for that. And I just don't think that you have the opportunity for that kind of rivalry atmosphere in the first round of the playoffs very often, and it could very well happen.
Yeah, I forgot to mention in the rules that you have to pick playoff matchups that are possible. Like we can't pick like Bills Chiefs. So yeah,
Yeah.
Steelers Ravens is absolutely possible.
Mhm.
I had it on my big board as any combination of Steelers Ravens because Ravens at Steelers is a possibility. Steelers
Mhm.
at Ravens is a possibility still.
Yep.
I I think it's the best rivalry in football. I really do. I don't think that that's a controversial statement unless you're a homer of some other team. And it feels like it's kind of lost some of the spice that it had from when we were younger. Like the whole AFC North kind of seems like it's lost some of the juice that it had our entire lives. I mean, like even
Yeah.
when Andy Dalton was the quarterback of the Bengals not that long ago, it seemed like these interdivision games in the AFC North had a little bit of an edge to them. And it used to
Hmm.
really be like the black and blue division of these teams just like beating the shit out of each other.
Hmm.
There is no better way to reignite a rivalry like this than a first round playoff matchup.
Yeah.
Like, and whether it's in Pittsburgh, whether it's in Baltimore, it's just classic. Like, I love seeing these two teams play. They
Hmm.
play actually on Saturday this week, and it's one of the games I'm looking forward to the most this weekend. Not just because Lamar Jackson's my
Hmm.
fantasy quarterback, but I think anytime these teams play, it's interesting and it's fun to watch just because of what we grew up with. But I agree with you. I had this on my board as well
Yeah.
for
And I
what
mean,
I'd like to see.
it'll very likely decide the division too.
Yeah, this weekend.
Hmm.
Yep. So I had that. That was not the number one pick on my board. My number one pick also includes the Ravens, but it is the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Still possible. I mean, I can boil it down to just one matchup, and it's Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. The Ravens absolutely eviscerated the Bills earlier this season, but if you've watched the Bills the last couple weeks, it's a very different team and a very different Josh Allen than we saw early this season. It is the two guys who are going to finish 1 and 2 in the MVP, with probably with Josh Allen winning, but I don't think the vote should be as far away as people are acting like it should be right now with how awesome Lamar Jackson's been this season. But either way, one of these guys is beating the other one out for an MVP. It's a revenge game. It's two extremely potent offenses and two defenses that aren't going to stop anybody. So the over under is probably like 60 something in this game. And the big quarterback matchups are really what people want to see. And this is probably the biggest one possible at the first round of the playoffs.
I mean, obviously, anytime you get two elite quarterbacks facing off, that's must-watch TV. Um, but also, like, yeah, the Bills are absolutely going to have a chip on their shoulder about that matchup in particular, given the way it went earlier this year for them.
Yeah. Can I tell you something?
Hmm.
So the last 2 weeks, Josh Allen has scored 90 points in fantasy. So he had the 52-point performance against the Rams, and he put up 40 against the Lions this past weekend, 41. He's still 11 points behind Lamar Jackson in fantasy for the season. Like, I feel like the Josh Allen MVP thing has really gained a lot of steam and has really taken over the narrative. And people
Hmm.
are kind of forgetting how excellent Lamar has been this season. He just threw 5 touchdowns on
Yeah.
Sunday as well. So he has 34 touchdowns to 3 interceptions on the season, 743 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 484 rushing yards, but 11 rushing touchdowns. So it's what, 37 touchdowns versus 36 right now for the two of them. So I
Hmm.
I feel like this should be way more neck and neck than it is. But that because of narratives and because Lamar's won MVPs before, everybody's like, this is it. This is Josh Allen's year. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but yeah, I could see Buffalo going into that game with a chip on their shoulder from earlier this season. And then if Lamar loses the MVP, I could see him going in like pissed off and being like, all right, got something to prove against a defense that's allowed 40 plus points in each of the last 2 weeks. Where are you going for pick number two?
I think I'm gonna go with Philly Green Bay. Um, I mean, it's not a secret that three of Green Bay's four losses are in the division. So this will be kind of their opportunity to kind of say, show like, no, 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 we're real, like we're real, we're legit, right? Um, and look, Green Bay's defense has genuinely been actually very good this year, most games. And so like that this is a team that can potentially, you know, cause some problems for that Saquon Barkley running game. Um, and maybe have that puncher's chance in a game like this. Because I mean, as long as you're keeping that score close, that high variance play style that Jordan Love has can pop for you in the right moment and give you the edge to win the game. Um, However, there's the other side of the coin of a much more consistent team in the Eagles having the chance to assert their dominance against a 10 plus win team.
Jordan Love getting a little hot right now. 9 touchdowns, no picks in his last 4 games. Hmm. Yeah, I like that matchup as well. I actually didn't list it on my big board. I listed 10 matchups because we're both going to draft five.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I got to have 10 in case Matt takes five of them that are on my board. That one actually, it didn't make the board, but I mean, it's a fun matchup, especially in Philly. Like
Yeah.
having to see Jordan Love go on the road. He went on the road and upset Dallas in the
Hmm.
playoffs last year. So it'd be like a lot of shit talk between like the Philly and the Dallas fans with him coming in. So I I think anytime that you have a team that's as talented as Philly and a team that like with the Lions injuries now, I think Philly's starting to gain a lot of steam as like an NFC favorite. But Green Bay has the coaching advantage in that matchup. And like anytime you have
Just by
Sirianni,
default.
yeah, like and LaFleur is legitimately a good coach too. Like the NFC North coaches are very good outside of Chicago. All three of them are. So you have the coaching edge. You have Jordan Love, who, like you said, can be a high variance player, but he's getting hot at the right time right now, just like he did last year. So I think that would be a fun one. Uh, for my second pick, I'm going to pick the matchup that you probably want to see the least, and that is the LA Rams at the Detroit Lions. This one would be a
Yeah.
tough one to pull off, but it is possible because the Rams would have to like lose their division and then still get a wild card, which would be difficult. The easier way to pull this off is probably Detroit Lions at the Rams if the Vikings were to win the division and the Lions were the 5 seed.
Yeah.
But some combination of Rams Lions. It's Matt Stafford versus the Lions one more time. It's the best
No.
offense in the league.
No. No.
I'm just thinking about like, with all the
It's
injuries,
it's it's must miss TV.
must admit for Lions fans for sure. But I I just see that being like a lot of mine. I think the theme of a lot of mine is points, like matchups where there's just going to be a shitload of points.
Hmm.
And the Rams give you guys trouble when you're at full strength on defense. So, like right now, with how beat up
Yeah.
the defense is, how many guys are on injured reserve?
Yeah. I
Matt
mean,
Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nakua are like the last guys you want to
yeah.
see.
Well, and yeah, I mean, if he's even just got one of those guys and Stafford walks in just kind of like on his game that day, I don't care who your defense is. Like you're gonna have a hard time, and you're just gonna have to bank on making enough plays to slow him down enough for your own offense.
Yeah, Stafford probably wants revenge as well because he's 0-2 against the
Yeah.
Lions. Since
Hmm.
like not that he should have any reason to have hard feelings against the Lions, but
No, but like anytime you lose to a team, especially a team that you have a connection to, like it's gonna stick in your craw a little bit.
yeah, I think there's probably a not so small part of Matt Stafford who came back to Detroit. He's come back to Detroit twice now, once in
Yeah.
the playoffs and then to start the year this year. And he was booed by Detroit
Yep.
fans. And we won't rehash that whole debate because
Yeah.
apparently it's the most controversial thing I've ever said on this podcast is that Detroit fans were wrong for doing that. That's like the most hate by far I've ever gotten
Honestly,
saying that.
if you are hurt by that, then that's you're soft.
But there's a probably a not so small part of him that's like, okay, you guys want to treat me like that? Well, fuck you then. And he probably wants to stick it to Detroit fans after being treated that way, after everything that he did for this team.
Yeah.
So I that is like I think for first round matchups for
Yeah.
the Lions, I bet, I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably the one you want to see the very least.
Yeah. No, it happened twice. That's more than enough. We we did it. All right. Like it's over.
It's good television for me as a casual viewer. Uh, where are you going with pick number three?
There would have to be some finagling for it to happen. I want to go Tampa, Minnesota.
Oh, that was going to be my next pick.
Yeah. It's just I don't know what it is about this team. But like first of all, every time we think they're down and done, like they keep crawling back. Tampa just doesn't die. And then look, you're not gonna see him on that game every week, but Baker can roast anyone on any given day. Uh, and that Tampa Bay defense like is going to make Sam Darnold feel it. He's going there. He is going to feel their presence. It's a challenge both ways because, well, yes, that's true. There's still that whole Justin Jefferson thing that you. So like, first of all, I'll watch any game with Justin Jefferson in it because he's just that good. But um, there's just so many little tidbits to that matchup that I find interesting. I mean, I do think too, we're talking about like Baker Mayfield, who was a reclamation project, going up against Sam Darnold, who has been a reclamation project. So, like, I think it's actually a really good measuring stick for like, okay, where is Sam Darnold really in this? Because we can look at these two guys in the same game. Like, where are we at? Not that that's one game is the end all be all, but hey, it'll
No,
say a lot about him.
I had this one written down actually, and I thought about putting it higher, but I was like, I probably don't have to do this for my second pick because I don't think Matt's going to take it. I thought I could wait longer on this one, but I like it a lot because of what you just mentioned. It's Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold were both in the top five of the same draft,
Yeah.
and their career arcs have followed an extremely similar trajectory where, Baker had more success with Cleveland than Sam Darnold had with the Jets, but they kind of flame out. Yeah, that's they kind of both flame out with the team that drafted him after coming in with super high expectations in both stops. And then they have to go to a better offensive system with like really good coaching to kind of get their career back on track. And then they take 1 year prove it deals with different franchises and prove it in the 1 year they have. And then like to go up against each other after like how far both of them have come after both being considered bust being in that same draft, especially with both of them being taken ahead of Josh Allen and how awesome he is. And then it's like, oh my God, I can't believe, I'm sure both fan bases are like, I can't believe we took this guy when we could have taken Josh Allen. And so for them to both be like, not even just competent starting quarterbacks, like Baker Mayfield, I think is third or fourth in the NFL in touchdown passes right now.
Mhm.
He has 32. And Sam Darnold has been a revelation in the Minnesota Vikings offense this year. So to like
Yeah.
have
And
that
like,
kind of full circle moment of the two of them playing each other in a playoff game and Sam Darnold's first playoff game is like narratively, I'd find that very fascinating.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned Justin Jefferson, but like Mike Evans is also playing extremely well. It should be and almost certainly will be first ballot Hall of Famer. Like another player that honestly you should just watch any chance you get. Like yeah, there's a lot of reasons to like that matchup.
Yeah, I think about Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and like I guess what could have been. They were both, they're drafted to two AFC teams in
Hmm.
the first five picks of that draft, and there was kind of like a little expectation that that could turn into some kind of rivalry between the two of them. And like maybe Cleveland and New York would see each other in the playoffs, and it would be like a little feud because Sam Darnold was like always supposed to be the first pick in that draft. And then Baker went to Oklahoma, and just Baker had so much swag and like aura, whatever the kids are calling it nowadays. And he was so good that like he kind of leapfrogged him. And it was like Sam Darnold, the prototypical quarterback. He's got the size, the arm, the looks, like everything you want in your franchise guy, versus like little short, pudgy Baker Mayfield, who did not look like a franchise quarterback at all. And it's like he takes that spot, and then they're both bust. And yeah, I think that's a really fun one narratively. Not to mention, like both teams are good. Like they're both having good seasons, especially the Buccaneers lately. So like it's fun on
Yeah,
the field as well. Man, that threw me off.
got you off your game.
Man, I'm gonna go. I guess I'm gonna do another Detroit matchup. This was also on my board. Green Bay at Detroit. We're talking about rivalries.
Yeah.
This is a rivalry where the shoe is truly on the other foot for the first time ever. Where now the Lions are the team that wins the division every year, and the Packers are like the scrappy underdog, supposedly. Also, just to play each other three times in a season, like how happy would you be if you beat the Packers three times in 1 year?
Incredible.
Yeah. And the Packers are looking for revenge after they've now been beat twice by the Lions this season. Is another fun like interdivision matchup. It's not a rivalry that's quite on the level of like Ravens Steelers, but it's a fun one, and it's one that has a chance to kind of take off too, with like the Packers having Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, and then Dan Campbell being in Detroit for the foreseeable future. Like it's one that could start getting more and more intense, and playoff games are a great way to get that started. Have you guys have never played them in the playoffs, right?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. So first meeting in the playoffs, that would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, there is that phrase that it's very hard to beat a team three times in a season. However, statistically, that has not necessarily proven to be true. Uh, but one of our favorite shows has that quote, statistics mean nothing to the individual. Uh, if you lose that one after beating them twice in the playoffs, beating them twice in the season didn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard that too, where people are like, "Oh yeah, it's actually not statistically significant, like how hard it is to beat a team three times in the season." But like I said a couple weeks ago, I watched Mark
Yeah.
Sanchez and the Jets come in and absolutely curb stomp Tom Brady and Bill Belichick after we had eviscerated them twice in the regular season that year. They just walked into New England and beat the ever loving shit out of the Patriots in the height of the dynasty. So I don't want to hear it. It's very hard to beat a division rival three times in the same
It
season.
it is very strange that like because it's something like an 80% win rate if you won the first two. Like it's really, really high. And it's really weird to think that like the Dynasty Patriots are one of the teams that actually lost that game. Like that it kind of goes against everything that you would expect.
It hurt. It hurt really bad. That I was just looking up the score. It said 28-21 was the final score. I do not remember it feeling like it was 28-21. I remember it feeling like an absolute fucking beatdown for 3 hours. That's how I remember that game.
I mean, when you lose a game to a quarterback that has a butt fumble, every 7 points feels like four.
Hold on. This was pre butt fumble. This is when people thought Mark Sanchez could still be like a
I
I want to say franchise quarterback, but
That
this is
may
when
be
Mark
true.
Sanchez was starting caliber,
That may be
supposedly.
true. However, your brain still knows now that there was a butt fumble.
Mm. Just it retroactively makes everything worse.
Yeah.
How guess it's just so bad. Guess how many touchdowns Mark Sanchez threw in that game?
Four?
Three. He threw three touchdowns. He threw 16 of 25, 194, three touchdowns. Shone Green ran for 76 and a touchdown. LaDainian Tomlinson, who people forget was on the Jets late in his career, 10 carries for 43. Braylon Edwards caught a touchdown. Santonio Holmes. This was like the fucking but you know that movie The Expendables where they got like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all those guys like
Oh,
that that's what that Jets team was. They had like washed up Braylon Edwards, washed up LaDainian Tomlinson, washed up Santonio Holmes, Jericho Cotchery. God, I hate this so much. I don't want to relive this. How did we get how did we get here? This is awful. This,
you're the one who brought up that team.
I know. I know, but that's what I think about when anybody's like, "Oh yeah, it's not that hard to play a team 3 times," and I'm like, "No, you don't understand what I've been through." Who's your fourth pick? Please God, let's get off the topic of the Jets and Patriots. No two teams could be further away from being in this conversation.
Oh God, I really want to somehow bring it back to that.
I got hurt
I
feelings. I got hurt feelings.
think I'm gonna go with Ravens Broncos.
Ooh,
Um Broncos defense has been awesome this year. Bo Nix has really come along in the back half of the year. Um and it just it feels like obviously it's a playoff game, so any team can win, right? But uh it it's one where you're pretty confident that the Ravens come out on top in that game. But it does feel like a really good opportunity to see like how far along has this Denver team come along? Like how ready are they? Um
yeah, because it really, really, really did not go well for Denver the last time they played the Ravens.
no, no. And in fairness, a lot of what they're doing on the field has changed since then. So, okay, like show us what you got because you're very much out of that blue chip draft pick area. So, you're gonna have to either be in that realm of like kind of being close to being ready, or you're gonna have to develop. So, it'll be interesting because the last like the nightmare scenario for Broncos fans is kind of being caught in that limbo area.
Yeah, I think that the real nightmare scenario for Broncos fans is like, what if this is just Bo Nix? Like that he's been great as a rookie. I think he's
You
surpassed.
should have just said Brock Osweiler.
But the thing about Bo Nix is like he's surpassed all expectations that anybody
Yeah.
had for him coming into this season. But also he was one of the older prospects in the draft and had a lot more football experience than a lot of these other guys, and is just probably more NFL ready than like Caleb Williams, Drake May were. And I think we saw something similar with Jaden Daniels, but he
Mhm.
has a way higher upside than Bo Nix. But I think there's an argument to be made that like Bo Nix could just be at his ceiling or like a lot closer to his ceiling right now than any of the other quarterbacks that were drafted this year are. I think that's the nightmare scenario. It's just like this is the best Bo Nix is ever going to be. He's like an 82 overall right now, and he's just an 82 overall forever. But there's still like positives to be taken from that being a rookie going to your first playoff game. You know,
Yeah.
my my thing, I on my big board, I did not list a single Broncos or Chargers matchup because I just am not super interested in watching either of those teams. Good for both of them. I'm glad that they've had these awesome seasons after expectations, for at least for the Broncos, like expectations were super low coming into this year. The Chargers, it was like, okay, this is either going to be awesome or a disaster, and it turned out to be like pretty good. But they just both feel like easy first round exits to me. Like I'll pick whoever they're playing, right? Like if it's the Bills, the
Yeah.
Ravens, that you could maybe talk me into like one of them beating the Texans, but I'm probably picking against them either way. Where
Honestly, I might be picking against the Texans no matter what.
uh, but I didn't pick a Texans matchup either. Sorry, AFC. Just like when there's all these great wild card teams, like the Ravens are a super fun team to put in any of these matchups.
Yeah.
The Packers, the Vikings are super fun teams to put into any of these matchups because they're like legitimately good teams. They're double digit win teams. And
Yeah.
then it's like, the Chargers are like a paper tiger, and they're just boring to watch.
Yeah.
And then the Broncos, it's like the Broncos feel like a classic, like overachieving team that we're going to bet against in the first round, especially if they play the Ravens. My fourth pick, I'm going to go Vikings at Rams. I think that's super fun. It's Vikings coach O'Connell going back to play against Sean McVay. So Kevin O'Connell was the offensive coordinator for the Rams before the Vikings hired him. He played a big role in that like Baker Mayfield reclamation project and was a large reason why people thought that Sam Darnold could kind of be reclamation project in Minnesota. I also just like Minnesota's defense likes to blitz the shit out of the opposing quarterback. The like number one thing you don't want to do against Matt Stafford and this offense in LA is blitz. So that's an interesting matchup of like, okay, what does Brian Flores do? Because you should not be blitzing Matt Stafford whatsoever if you can help it. And they like to be super aggressive. So you kind of have to switch up your game plan against Sean McVay, who's one of the best game planners in the entire NFL. I just like that, like schematically. It's a bunch of smart coaches, a bunch of like, you know, you talked about Justin Jefferson earlier. We would have Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Jordan Addison, like all in the same game. Not
Yep.
to mention like Kyron Williams and Aaron Jones and all these guys. So lots of firepower there. I thought their matchup a couple weeks ago was pretty good. That was where the Rams beat the Vikings, and it was like the first game with Puka and Kupp back and fully healthy, and it was like, oh, this is what this offense looks like with these two guys, and now they're getting healthier. The offense is, I want to say, starting to look better, but Thursday night was pretty shitty. So that Thursday night game was probably the worst football game I've ever watched.
Yeah. I mean, the first half, I don't think either quarterback could even feel the ball when it was in their hand.
Yeah.
And then Stafford started to look better in the second half, but Purdy just, yeah, he never rebounded.
No. Purdy was awful. Stafford, like they figured some stuff out in the second
Yeah.
half, and they had that like 8 minute drive that ended in a
Hmm.
field goal that really kind of salted the game away. That game, no touchdowns, was plus 8,500 on DraftKings going into that game for neither team to score a touchdown the entire game. And we got 6 field goals and legitimately some of the work. Like I'm all for like a defensive slugfest if the defenses are just playing really well and
Yeah.
just like outmaneuvering the offense. This was just
If
like
if
sloppy,
if the
nasty.
defenses are actually why it's low scoring
Yeah,
instead of poor offense or conditions.
it was also hard for me because like an idiot, I played Isaac Guerrero.
Yeah.
in fantasy over James Cook. And I sat there like all night Thursday, like pretty much all night Thursday, all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday up until 1 p.m. I was like, why am I so stupid? Just it's the only thing I think about. I'm like working, I'm spending time with my kids and my wife, I'm like working out, and like literally the only thing I'm like, why am I so stupid? And then of course James Cook like goes off against the Lions. And I was just like, dude, thank God that I dominated my fantasy football matchup anyway, my first round playoff matchup, because if I had lost because I made that move, I would have never forgiven myself. That would have been one of those moves that I talk about on the podcast like 5 years from now. And it's like, you just pick, remember that time you started that 49ers running back who's not in the league anymore over James Cook in the fantasy playoffs? Like, shut up, man. I did win for anybody concerned, though. And it's in large part thanks to Lamar Jackson and scary Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
And the fact that my opponent played Jameis Winston. Not a good
Big
game.
oof.
He went full Jameis. Who is your final pick?
I am gonna go Tampa Bay, Green Bay. Battle of the Bays.
Battle of the Bays.
A lot of the reasons that I talked about, uh, kind of being excited to watch Tampa Bay apply here as well. Um, and then from Green Bay's standpoint, like, uh, I don't think I even mentioned it when I picked them earlier. Like, Josh Jacobs has been incredible the back half of this year. Um, and so like seeing him going up against a, you know, defensive front led by Vita Vea, like, all right, let's see. Like that's definitely strength on strength there. Um, also I feel like I kind of had been saying this since he started coaching there, but watching them last week, I just had like it firmly cemented in my mind. Matt LaFleur's offense is not a quarterback offense. It is a running back offense. Like the most important player in that offense outside of offensive line is the running back. Granted, yes, like you still need your quarterback to win you games in the playoff, but that's literally every team. In terms of like 17 games, your running back is far more important to the consistent success in that offense than the quarterback will ever be.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar to Kyle Shanahan's offense
Yep.
in San Francisco. Obviously, Matt
Mhm.
LaFleur came from there to the
Yeah.
Packers,
Mhm.
but it's very running back heavy. And I mean, even when they beat Dallas in the playoffs last year, Aaron Jones had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the I think that's the thing we got to learn for fantasy next year is like when guys who are super talented running backs get out of shitty situations and go to good
Yeah.
ones, you want
Just
that guy.
just get him.
Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs,
Yep.
like all guys who are like, oh, well, they're in their later 20s. They could be washed. You want to stay away from them. And they're what, three of the top four backs in fantasy, maybe the top three now. I think
Yeah.
they might be the top three. I know Bijan's up there somewhere as well. And so is James Cook. But yeah, I think that's the thing we got to watch this offseason. There's going to be some running back who goes somewhere else going into fantasy football season next year. It's going to be like, yeah, I don't know. He's a little older. Do we really think he could be good? It's like, no, just take him. If he's going to a better situation, you want that guy. Man, I had a couple left on my board, but my final playoff matchup is going to be uh probably the least likely one to happen of any that we named, but it is the Cincinnati Bengals versus anybody. Cincinnati Bengals sight unseen. The Cincinnati Bengals are the most fun team to watch in all of football right now, just purely from the fact that they're going to score 35 and give up either 34 or 36. And whichever one of those numbers they give up is going to decide if they win or not. It's like Bengals Bills, I'm here for it. Bengals Steelers, great. Bengals Chiefs, hook it up, baby. Whoever the Bengals could potentially play, I still want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs. Like, it's really a shame that him and Jamar Chase are putting up like probably their best seasons ever, maybe the best seasons that both of them will have in their entire careers, and that they're going to have a losing record. The only things left on my board that we didn't go over, I had Ravens at Chiefs, which again, very unlikely that the Bills could jump the Chiefs. They're 2 games back with 3 games left to play. They do have the tiebreaker though, so if they were able to catch them somehow, they would get the number 1 seed, and we could potentially see the Ravens and Chiefs, and that's Mahomes versus Lamar. Always fun. I had Rams Eagles. We've talked about the Rams offense multiple times in different matchups. The Eagles defense might be the best in the league right now. They're at least up there. They're like top 2, top 3 in the league. And watching Quinyon Mitchell go up against Puka Nacua for 3 hours, or Cooper Kupp, or like however they deploy Quinyon Mitchell against those guys, fascinating. And then I had fighting Georges at Eagles. We talked about division matchups.
Hmm.
Jaden Daniels' first playoff game against a division rival. It's like you pull that one off in Philly, you're an automatic Washington legend, as if he's not already. But like, just imagine after the season that he's had, if he was able to beat Philly in the playoffs, how the Washington fans would be at an absolute fever pitch.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. America's most favorite segment, bolds and scolds from week 15 of the NFL season. It's your week to go first. I'm Ron
Is
Burgundy.
it?
Yeah, you just
Um,
you just go first.
okay. Um,
I don't know how we can't figure this. I can never figure this out.
yeah. It's really hard for me to think of anything other than my team's game from that week. So, as much as it hurts, Josh Allen, you are Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from what Lamar has done this year, but it's really hard for me to watch how Josh Allen is playing right now and be like, yeah, someone can beat him.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just doing whatever he wants whenever he wants, and there's nothing you can do about it because when he's on his game, he's that fucking good. Um, yeah, have mentioned it in the past. His peaks, as insane as it is to say, are higher than that of Mahomes. Uh, it's just that we weren't necessarily at a lot of points in time seeing those peaks as often. Um, right now, it feels like he's playing at his peak at all times.
Yeah. This is peak Josh Allen. I don't know that I agree that it's better than peak Mahomes, because when we saw peak Mahomes with Kelsey and Hill and all those guys, he threw 50 touchdowns and like insane amount of yards, and he's won
Well, I
three
mean,
Super
he's
Bowls.
put up 11 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
No, he's been awesome the last 2 weeks. My biggest fear with the Bills right now is just that when your defense is playing as poorly as they have played,
yeah.
and Josh Allen has to play at this level to win these games
Yep.
against playoff offenses, like, you beat the 49ers, that's great. You beat the Chiefs, cool. But like, the Rams are a very potent offense,
Hmm.
and they put up 44 on you guys. The
Yeah.
Lions are probably the best offense in the league and put up 42, you know? So
Yeah.
Josh Allen's had to be super duper Josh to win these
Yes.
games. And teams that are like that good on offense and that bad on defense, or teams that rely on their quarterback to be like, the whole game is on you. If you don't score every
Hmm.
single drive, we're going to lose. Those teams don't win championships.
No.
And you could say the same thing about the Ravens, is that like, yeah, Lamar's been awesome, but with how bad they're like, the defense has been better lately.
Yeah.
But if that defense doesn't get their shit together, those types of teams do not win championships in the NFL. And I'm just already seeing a situation where the Ravens and Chiefs play in the second round, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go, it's time." They're gonna take him out because the Chiefs are so vulnerable, and it's like, yeah, the Chiefs have a really fucking good defense in Patrick Mahomes, and that like, do not make any mistakes that is very much enough to win the Super Bowl this year. So, like, yeah, that Josh Allen's been incredible lately, but the rest of this team needs to step up around him if they
Mhm.
want to get past Kansas City still. Like this version of Josh is good enough, but this version of the Bills is not.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, Josh is just kind of at the point on Sunday where he's like rolling out to the right and he's like rolling, doing that thing where he's like just fast enough where the defense can't tackle him. And then all of a sudden he whips it across the field. And yeah, like he's playing amazing. The offensive play calling by Joe Brady has
Hmm.
been phenomenal the last couple of weeks. They had this little
Yeah.
like they had a little
He
like fake toss to James Cook and then like shovel pass to Khalil Shakir for a
mhm.
touchdown. That I was like, yeah, like they really used a lot of motion to shred you guys.
That will happen when they use that much motion and you are playing that many guys that have just barely been on the team. Like the communication is not going to be there.
Yeah, there was a couple plays where it was like a big gain, and whoever was announcing like Romo or whatever was like, I feel bad for this linebacker. He's been here for 3 days.
Yeah.
He's put in a hard spot. So, um, my bold for week 15 is Jaguars defensive tackle Jeremiah Ledbetter. If you don't know who that is, don't worry because I don't think a lot of people do. He recorded his second sack of the season on Sunday, sacking Aaron Rodgers. But the real reason he's the bold is because following that sack, this 6'3", 300-pound man hit a standing backflip. Like from a full stand, bends down, it does a fucking backflip. People that are 6'3", 300 pounds are not meant to do standing backflips. Like it truly an incredible feat of athleticism. I was thinking about when we were in high school. I forget which one of our football coaches it was, but someone used to tell this story about Warren Sapp, where they would be like, you know, who has the fastest 40 time in the NFL? And everybody would like guess. And they'd be like, who has the fastest 20 time in the NFL? And people would guess like running backs and wide receivers and blah, blah. And they'd be like, no, the fastest 10-yard split and 20-yard split in the NFL was Warren Sapp, like in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
because he was so strong from like the waist down and could generate so much power
Yeah.
that for 10 or 20 yards, he was the fastest guy in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
And I think people forget how athletic the offensive and defensive linemen in the NFL are,
Hmm.
just because like they're these big fat guys that you don't see do crazy athletic stuff all the time. And so I thought this was a good reminder that kind of like a nobody defensive tackle hits a standing backfield while being 300 pounds after a play. I was like, that, because that's like, that takes athleticism to do that if you're our size.
Yeah.
Like to do that at 300 pounds, the force that you have to generate is absolutely amazing. Um,
And luckily for him, he didn't pull a Stephen Tulloch.
yeah, I honestly, as soon as I saw what he was doing, I was like, this can only end badly. This is going to end in an injury, 100%. And he was okay. Coincidentally, I looked up Warren Sapp's 40 time from the NFL Combine. It is really hard to find combine stats from like 1995, but you want to guess what his 40 time was?
Am I gonna be impressed?
Yes,
I I'm gonna go like 4.75.
469.
Damn.
Yeah, it was the record until Kalijah Clancy ran a 467 like 2 years ago or whatever that was. But yeah, just 1995, fucking 300 plus pound Warren Sapp running a 469 at the combine. How could you watch that
Insane.
and not be like, this is the greatest defensive tackle of all time back in 1995? Who is your scold week 15?
God. He is smiting all of the individual players. on my favorite team.
I didn't know if this was like an exclamation to be like, God, it's gonna be so and so because he was so bad, but I did not expect
Yeah,
anybody on this
yeah.
podcast to scold God.
I mean, 22 players on IR now. 22 players, which is a lot. And for those out there that want to point to the Packers winning the Super Bowl with 16 players on IR, that is a half of a unit on the over half of a unit on the field. Extra players that we are missing. Look,
I don't know if people know this, but 22 is greater than 16.
it is that you know what? That if people don't know that, that might be why some people want to get rid of the Department of Education.
Yeah. I sent you a visual representation of this data. That I found this graph
Yeah.
that shows like by team. It organizes it by team how many players they have on IR.
Hmm.
And first of all, it's jarring because Detroit is obviously dead last with 22. The next highest is Cleveland with 16. But I think it's really funny to look at like the teams who are on the side of the graph that have a lot of injuries and how
Hmm.
their season has gone, and the team that is on the side of the graph that does not have a lot of injuries and how their season has gone. And you look at like the biggest disappointments this season are near the end of the graph with more guys on IR.
Hmm.
So, like, obviously, Detroit withstanding because they're 12 and 2,
Yeah.
but Cleveland is number two. You have San Francisco's number three, Cincinnati's number four, Miami is number six, Dallas is over there, the Jets are up there. And then you flip to the other side of the chart, and it's like, who are the teams that have been the biggest surprises this season? Buffalo, Denver, Green Bay, Washington, Minnesota are your top five least injured teams. Then
There's
Philly, Seattle, Baltimore are all
yeah.
there too. Like it, injury luck is a thing for a reason.
Yep.
It's a brutal sport. There's a lot of injuries, and if you can make it through the season with more and more guys healthy, it is very, very apparent from looking at that graph that it's a massive advantage. And I was telling Marley the other day that like I think this week was the first time where I was nervous about the Lions winning the Super Bowl this season because I have that bet for them to win it from the preseason, and I looked at
Right.
Marley and I was like, I don't know if they can win the Super Bowl anymore because not that they can't, but like I said earlier in the pod, I think like things are shifting a little bit right now,
Hmm.
and that Philly is now like becoming the favorite in a lot of people's minds to win the NFC just
Yeah.
because Detroit is so like brutalized. And it's not just like
Yeah.
guys who got hurt, it's like important pieces who got hurt.
No, like the most important pieces are the ones that are hurt.
Well,
You know,
Amon Ra,
outside of quarterback, right?
no, but like Amon Ra
So,
and Gibbs and Sewell and Goff are still out there. And like the fact that those guys are still out there is why you still have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
hmm.
Also, you have the best safety tandem in the league is like a very underrated
Hmm.
aspect. But it's yeah, like Aleem McNeil is absolutely brutal. David Montgomery is like that fucking
Hmm.
sucks. Those were the two most recent ones. Like obviously you've been
Yeah.
dealing with Hutchinson all season. It's like if the Lions don't win the Super Bowl this year and have all these guys hurt, it's going to be such a huge what if for Detroit
Yeah.
fans. Like, because I mean, you can already sit here and be like, well, what if Aiden Hutchinson hadn't broken his leg?
Yeah.
Be a totally different defense. So,
Hmm. I mean, he doesn't get brought up a lot, but like losing Derek Barnes really fucking hurts. Like he was another guy who brought pressure, but also like really underrated like coverage linebacker. Just having lost Anzalone for all these weeks. Now we're down Carlton Davis. Like it's just
yeah, it's
you can't make this shit up. Like
not fun right now. And it's like, this is kind of what I was talking about this a couple weeks ago where I was like, man, the Lions are like, I think you guys were 11 and 1, and yet you were only one game ahead for the one seed and one game ahead for your division.
yep.
And now there's like a real risk that with all these injuries, you could potentially drop to like having an away playoff game.
Hmm.
And it's like that was unthinkable like a couple weeks ago with how
Yeah.
good they've been playing. So my heart goes out to you. My scold for week 15 is Jaguars defensive tackle Jeremiah Ledbetter because he didn't land the goddamn flip. Don't do the flip if you can't land it, Jeremiah. No, I'm still very impressed by the flip. My actual scold is Trey McBride, the tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, and the Arizona Cardinals like offense and offensive coordinator. And I don't really know who to blame for this, but Trey McBride set the record on Sunday for the most catches in a single season without a touchdown. He now has 89 catches and 0 touchdowns on the season. The record was previously held by Deontay Johnson, who had 86 catches without a touchdown. He has 938 receiving yards this season. The record for the most yards without a touchdown is 963. If he doesn't catch a touchdown in the next 25 yards, he's setting the record for most yards without a touchdown in a season. And it's just kind of crazy to me because Trey McBride is like a really good tight end. Like 89 catches, 938 yards is like a really good line for a tight end. And it doesn't make any sense to me that he didn't make it into the end zone until we go back and look at his senior year of college at Colorado State, where he had 1,121 yards on 90 catches and only 1 touchdown the entire season. I'm just like, maybe for some reason, he's just not a good red zone guy. Fantastic between the 20s, can't quite punch it in for some reason, but it's a very, very weird trend with him.
It
Very
is
weird.
very strange.
Yeah. I don't really know whose fault it is. That's why it's just like, I don't know. Arizona's offense.
Oh, someone's got to burn for this.
So it's someone's fault. I just got to figure out who. All right. Gambling picks for week 16 of the NFL season, starting with Thursday night football, which is the Denver Broncos at the LA Chargers. Like when you looked at week 16 and saw Denver versus LA on Thursday night football at the beginning of the season, bet none of you thought it was going to have massive playoff implications. But here we are. The Chargers are
Yeah.
favored by 3. I think I get to give my pick first this week.
Hmm.
I hate this game.
Yeah.
I hate it. I look through there's not like a single thing I like, and they have now taken field goals made off the board for all these games because I think we were making too much money on it. Um so I went with something a little weird and I think a little easier. I am going with Lad McConkey and Cortland Sutton, both to have more than 50 receiving yards in this game. I think individually, those lines are like minus 400 and minus 300. But if we parlay them together, it is minus 110.
I was considering McConkey, but I,
That's under both their over unders too.
yeah,
It's like an alternate receiving line.
yeah. But the more I just wanted to stay away from there because I feel like Pat Surtain is just gonna follow him. It's
I
the
want
only
to
receiver that gives any sort of threat.
I want
So,
to stay away from this game in general. I honestly, I
yes.
was looking at it today and I was like, do we just open it up to be like, you can pick anything from Thursday or the weekend, like Saturday? Because the NFL does not give a fuck about player safety. So there's
Yeah. Nope.
Saturday games this week, and then those 4 teams also play on Wednesday next week on
Hmm.
Christmas. Wednesday.
Yeah.
They play on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
The
It's
NFL
normal,
will
right?
NFL will not stop until they have every single day.
22 players on IR on the one team wasn't enough.
Feels like Maction at an NFL level. They're just like, we're just gonna play on whatever day we want to play on. Fuck you guys, you'll watch it. What's your pick for Thursday night football?
I'm just gonna take the under. So that's gonna be under 41 and a half at minus 112. It's a
Yeah, this
Thursday game. It'll be kind of sloppy, I guess.
it's either
Both
gonna
good
be like a
defenses.
yeah, it's either gonna be like a shitty, sloppy Thursday game or it's gonna be 53-49.
Yep.
It's just like there's no in between with these Thursday games. It's either like shitty or insane.
Yeah.
All right, for the weekend, I do have a bet I really like this weekend. We talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how good they've been playing lately. They are -4 at Dallas on Monday Night Football this week, and I'm going to take that. Buccaneers -4 at the Dallas Cowboys. I will not be thrown off by Dallas defeating the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Everybody's like, oh man, big win for Dallas. Carolina was favored. Carolina sucks. You know who doesn't suck? The Bucks. I think that is -110 as well. So, what is your pick for the weekend?
Okay. This isn't my pick. However, just give me a guess on what you think Jahmyr Gibbs anytime touchdown odds are.
Good Lord, like -250.
-310.
My guy is getting it in this weekend. What's his what's his odds to score 2 touchdowns?
Uh, Actually, they are
Is it
not offering that opportunity.
it honestly is probably not that good of an opportunity anyway.
Yeah, they're only offering first TD score or anytime TD.
Yeah, anytime TD -310. Good Lord, is that's probably the best odds of the or the lowest odds of the weekend would be my guess to score a touchdown. God, Chase Brown is -255.
Jesus.
Chase Brown is a machine. He's a machine that we got for a 7th round pick in our dynasty league. Someone was like, I'm trying to get rid of Chase. This is last year. Someone's like, I want to get rid of Chase Brown. I'm just going to drop him if nobody gives me a pick. And I was like, I will give you a 7th. Chase Brown is a beast. Yeah, for everything that's listed right now, Jahmyr Gibbs is the lowest.
I think I'm gonna take the Rams money line. They're at -3.5. Uh, and that's gonna be -105.
Rams money line or the Rams -3.5?
The spread, the -3.5.
Against the Jets this weekend. You're coming over on Sunday
Yep.
to hang out while you're in town. We will be watching that game because that is on TV. And our options are basically either watch that or the Patriots public execution at 4:30 against the Bills. Long shot bet of the week. We are going with the aforementioned Jahmyr Gibbs. We're going to take him to score the first touchdown of the game against the Bears at +290. There, obviously, Vegas is extremely confident that he is going to punch one in this weekend. And I think that like you see this with Dan Campbell and the Lions
Mhm.
is that like when there is a point to prove, they prove it. And I think
Yeah.
with Monty being out, that there is very much a point to prove with Jahmyr Gibbs
Yeah.
and that they are going to prove it this weekend. You know, I kind of feel like, I mean, maybe it's not as quiet as I was thinking, but like Jahmyr Gibbs has kind of quietly been a top 5 running back in fantasy this year.
Yeah. It's only something you haven't noticed if you don't have him on your fantasy team.
Yeah. He's RB3 right
Yeah.
now in half point PPR behind Saquon and Derrick Henry. And it's like he hasn't had, I mean, I guess the game against Minnesota was pretty huge with 30 points, but it's not necessarily that he's had like a bunch of monster games like Saquon has.
Mm.
It's just like every single week,
Just
15,
consistently fucking awesome.
yeah, 15, 14, 16, 20, 10, 30, 20, 14, 12, 19,
Yeah.
23, 16, 25. Like it's just, he's just really good every week and like super consistent, but it's not like,
Yeah.
Saquon's had like the
Right.
32, 32, 32, like 44, not like those monster games. But yeah, so that's why I'm saying it's been a little like more on the quiet side.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that is just the function of they've had Gibbs and Monty. Right. So like those games where he is having a good game, like they're not just gonna completely ignore Monty as well.
Yeah.
So
Monty is running back 13 on the season.
yeah,
Would you like to guess where Chase Brown is right now?
6.
He is an RB1. He's 11th. So your RB1s right now: Saquon, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Bijan Robinson. Those are your top 5. Kamara, Kyron Williams, Devin Achan, Joe Mixon, James Cook, Chase Brown, and James Conner. Those are the 12 that we all predicted at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
Definitely had Chase Brown as an RB1. But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. You can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. Long name, but you can't miss it. This podcast comes out on Thursday, the 19th, which means that you are one day away from the start of the college football playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Friday night, Indiana at Notre Dame at 8 p.m. Saturday is like a super weird day for sports and also like a hell of a day. So we have 2 NFL games at 1 and 4:30, and like good ones. It's Texans at Chiefs, Steelers at Ravens, or at 1 and 4:30. But then you also have the college football playoff games at noon, 4 and 8. That is a hell of a day for football. And then obviously going into NFL football on Sunday. Super fun game followed by the Monday night game. So lots of football this weekend. And I was kind of stunned that like the college football playoff games are the same day as NFL games. And then I remembered the NFL wants to play on a Wednesday in a week on Christmas. And they're just like, yeah, fuck it. We're going to play whenever we want and you're going to watch it and you're going to like it. We don't care about college football. So, but all right, my friend. Well, I will see you in person Sunday. And then you guys stay tuned. Matt and I will be back sometime next week. Their Christmas holiday is in there somewhere. So we'll figure it out and we'll be back.
Yep.
Just watch for the pod. So,
yes.
all right, buddy.
Bye,
I'll
guys.
see you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, Robin.